One of Alabama Republican Senate nominee Roy Moore's initial accusers gave her first television interview Monday. Lee Korfman says Moore kissed her and touched her inappropriately when she was 14 years old. Here's some of what she said about that encounter.
He basically laid out some blankets on the floor of his living room and proceeded to seduce me, I guess you would say. And during the course of that, he removed my clothing. He left the room and came back in wearing his white underwear. And he touched me over my clothing, what was left of it. And he tried to get me to touch him as well.
Brian Lyman covers Alabama government and politics for the Montgomery Advertiser. He joins me now via Skype. Welcome, Brian.
Thanks for having me.
So we're about 3 weeks out from the Alabama special election. Do you expect Lee Korfman's interview to change the minds of any more supporters?
Probably not more supporters. They're very committed to their candidate. The real question will be, what does this do for suburban women, particularly suburban Republican women, who Moore has traditionally struggled with? The Washington Post story, which first broke the Korfman's allegations back in, I guess, a little over a week ago now, that kind of that created a stir in the race. And Beverly Nelson, who came forward on last Monday saying that Moore had attacked her, that seemed to move quite a number of some more of these like Republican women off the fence. So really the question is less about what's going to happen with Moore supporters and more about like what's going to happen in the suburbs of the state.
Well, on Saturday, the Young Republican Federation of Alabama suspended support for Roy Moore's candidacy. How important are young voters for Moore's chances of winning?
Moore was not going to win a lot of young voters. His appeal is traditionally to some of your older voters in the state who make up a significant part of the electorate. The defection of young Republicans from the ticket is noticeable, though, because the state party has stood solidly behind Moore right up to this point. In fact, most of the leading officials have been afraid to break away from him. The fact that the younger conservatives in this state are leaving, that may not have much of an effect on December's election, but it's an interesting sign of where the party may be going in the years ahead. And
how do you think Governor Kay Ivey's support for Moore is shaping Republicans' views of him in these last few weeks?
Moore is one of those rare candidates who comes with instant name recognition in this state, and for the most part, voters made up their minds about him a long time ago. He creates passionate feelings for him and passionate feelings against him. Ivey's remarks were, in large part, kind of a reflection of a lot of Republican leaders who are afraid of those Moore voters who are going to come out and vote in the 2018 Republican primaries. It looks like they're making a calculation that they want to stay on the good side of those Moore supporters. That could be a correct calculation, but you also want to see what women voters do next month to see really how this all plays out.
Well, last week we saw two polls that showed Democrat Doug Jones ahead of Moore. Given the non-traditional nature of this race, though, how much weight should we be giving to those numbers?
Alabama is a hard state to poll generally, so I try not to really focus much on individual polls, but it is worth noting that on average, the polls have tightened considerably since these allegations came out. Jones has been raising a lot of money, and if you go to his events, the Democrats in the state do definitely seem to be energized for their man. The question, though, is are there enough Democrats in the state to take him over the top? And if not, can he bring in enough crossover Republican voters to become the first Democrat elected to the U.S. Senate from Alabama since 1992?
Well, what needs to happen, you think, for Doug Jones to win? And you talked about crossover Republicans. We haven't seen much of Doug Jones on the national level. Why is that, you think?
He's trying to keep a distance from the National Democratic Party, so that's a deliberate strategy that even preceded these allegations. To win the state, what Jones has to do is he has to win all four urban areas, including Mobile and Madison counties, which traditionally go Republican. He needs a large turnout in the Black Belt, which is a heavily Democratic area. And finally, he has to hope that he can avoid being blown out in the rural areas, or hope for a depressed turnout in the rural areas, which traditionally have not only been Moore's stronghold, but in previous elections, he's been able to lose the cities and still win election thanks to his rural support.
All right, a lot of eyes will be watching this December. Brian Lyman, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.